Maya Collins wiped the grease from her hands with an old rag. The engine room was hot and noisy, just like every other day for the past 3 months. She liked it that way. The noise meant she could work without people bothering her. The heat meant most crew members stayed away. She was fixing a power coupling when footsteps echoed on the metal floor. Maya looked up to see Pete Rodriguez walking toward her. Pete was the chief engineer, a big man with kind eyes who never yelled at his crew. "How's it going, Maya?" Pete asked, looking at the mess of wires and tools around her. "Almost done," Maya said quietly. She always spoke quietly. Some people thought she was shy. Others thought she was unfriendly. Maya didn't care what they thought. Pete nodded and walked away. Maya went back to her work. She had been on the USS Liberty for 6 months now. Before that, she had worked on 3 other ships. She was good at her job, but she never stayed anywhere too long. It was better that way. The USS Liberty was a big ship with 200 crew members. It was exploring deep space, looking for new planets and alien races to trade with. Maya had heard the officers talking about their mission. She understood it was important, but she just wanted to fix engines and be left alone. Captain Jake Morrison walked into the engine room an hour later. Maya saw him from the corner of her eye, but kept working. The captain was a smart man who paid attention to everything. Maya had noticed him watching the crew during their work. He seemed to see things that other people missed. "Pete, how are the engines running?" Captain Morrison asked. "Good, sir. Maya here just fixed the power coupling. She's got magic hands when it comes to engines." Maya felt her face get warm. She didn't like being talked about, especially not by the captain. She kept her head down and pretended to be busy with her tools. "Is that so?" Captain Morrison said. Maya could feel him looking at her. "How long have you been working on ships?" "Collins." 5 years, sir," Maya answered without looking up. "And you learned engine repair where?" "Here and there, sir. Picked it up as I went." Captain Morrison was quiet for a moment. Maya hoped he would leave soon. She didn't like questions about her past. There were things she couldn't tell anyone, things that would make them afraid of her. "Well, keep up the good work," the captain said finally. His footsteps moved away, but Maya had a feeling he was still watching her. The next day brought trouble. Maya was eating breakfast alone in the corner of the mess hall when the ship suddenly shook. Red lights started flashing, and the alarm began to ring. All around her, crew members jumped up and ran to their stations. Maya finished her coffee and walked slowly to the engine room. She wasn't worried. Ships shook sometimes. It was usually nothing serious, but when she got to the engine room, she saw Pete and 5 other engineers standing around the main control panel. They all looked scared. "What's wrong?" Maya asked. "The quantum drive is acting up," Pete said, sweat on his face. "We're in the middle of a hyperspace jump, and something's going wrong with the containment field." Maya looked at the readings on the screen. The numbers were all wrong. The energy levels were jumping around like crazy. If the containment field failed during a hyperspace jump, the ship would be torn apart. "How long until we can drop out of hyperspace?" Maya asked. 20 minutes, said Tom Baker, one of the younger engineers. "But the field won't hold that long. Look at these readings." Maya studied the numbers. Tom was right. They had maybe 5 minutes before everything went bad. The other engineers were running around, checking connections and trying different fixes. Nothing was working. Maya walked to the quantum drive core. It was a big metal cylinder in the center of the engine room, surrounded by warning signs and safety barriers. No one was supposed to touch it directly. "Maya, what are you doing?" Pete called out. Maya didn't answer. She climbed over the safety barrier and put her hands on the containment field generator. The metal was warm under her palms. She could feel the energy inside, wild and dangerous. Maya closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had hoped she would never have to do this again. For 6 months, she had been just a normal mechanic. But the ship was in danger, and these people would die if she didn't act. She let her real self wake up, just a little bit. Power flowed through her hands and into the machine. For a moment, her brown eyes flashed bright blue, like lightning in a storm. The quantum drive hummed softly and settled into a steady rhythm. The energy readings on the screens went back to normal. The red warning lights stopped flashing. Maya opened her eyes and stepped back from the drive. Her eyes were brown again, just like always. "What did you do?" Pete asked, staring at the normal readings on his screen. "I realigned the quantum flux," Maya said quietly. It wasn't really a lie. She had realigned something, just not in the way Pete would understand. The other engineers gathered around the control panel, checking and double-checking the readings. Everything looked perfect. They started talking about how lucky they were and what might have caused the problem. Maya picked up her tools and walked back to her workstation. She hoped no one had seen her eyes change color. She hoped no one would ask too many questions. But from the corner of her eye, she saw Captain Morrison standing on the observation deck above the engine room. He was looking right at her, and his face had a strange expression. Maya's heart started beating faster. Had he seen what happened? Captain Morrison watched her for another moment, then turned and walked away. Maya tried to tell herself that everything was fine. She was still just the quiet mechanic who fixed things and minded her own business. But deep inside, she knew things were about to change. 2 weeks later, the USS Liberty arrived at Kepler Station. Maya had never seen anything like it. The space station was huge, with spinning sections and bright lights. Ships from different worlds were docked around it like metal flowers on a giant stem. Maya was in the engine room doing her regular maintenance work when Pete came to find her. "Maya, we're going to be here for 3 days," Pete said. "The captain is meeting with some aliens called Zephyrians. Big important stuff." Maya nodded but didn't say anything. She had heard the crew talking about this meeting for weeks. Earth wanted to make friends with alien races and start trading with them. The Zephyrians were supposed to be very advanced and powerful. "You can take some time off if you want," Pete continued. "Go see the station, maybe buy something nice." "I'm fine here," Maya said. She didn't like crowds or new places. The engine room was safe and quiet. Captain Morrison was getting ready for the most important meeting of his life. He put on his best uniform and checked his appearance in the mirror. Commander Lisa Park and Dr. Alex Turner would come with him. Lisa was smart and good with words. Alex knew a lot about alien biology and culture. "Remember, we need to show them that humans are worth their time," Captain Morrison told his team as they walked to the shuttle bay. "These Zephyrians have technology we can only dream of. If we can make a deal with them, it could change everything. For Earth." Maya was replacing some worn cables when she heard voices in the corridor outside the engine room. She recognized Captain Morrison's voice, and 2 others she didn't know well. They were talking about the meeting with the aliens. "Sir, what if they don't like us?" asked a young voice. Maya thought it might be Ensign Katie Wells from the communications department. "Then we keep trying," Captain Morrison answered. "Humans don't give up easily. That's one thing I'm proud of about our species." Maya smiled a little as she worked. She liked that about humans, too. They were stubborn and brave even when they were scared. The meeting took place in a big conference room on Kepler Station. Captain Morrison and his team sat on one side of a long table. On the other side sat 3 Zephyrians. The aliens were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. They wore simple white clothes that seemed to glow softly. When they moved, it was smooth and graceful, like they were floating instead of walking. The leader was called High Negotiator Veltar. When he spoke, his voice was cold and flat, like he was bored. "So," Veltar said, looking at the humans like they were insects, "you are the species from the 3rd planet of the Sol system. We have heard rumors about you." "Yes, sir, Captain," Morrison said politely. "We're honored to meet with you. We hope we can build a friendship between our peoples." Veltar made a sound that might have been laughter, but it wasn't friendly. "Friendship? Tell me, humans, what do you have that we might want?" Dr. Turner opened a case and pulled out several devices. "These are examples of our technology. We have efficient energy storage, advanced medical equipment, and unique approaches to space travel." The 3 Zephyrians looked at the human devices for about 10 seconds. Then Veltar waved his hand, and the devices began to dissolve into dust. "Primitive," Veltar said. "We had better technology than this before your species learned to make fire." Captain Morrison felt his face get hot, but he kept his voice calm. "Perhaps we could learn from each other. Humans are good at solving problems in new ways." "Problems?" Another Zephyrian spoke for the first time. Her voice was sharp and mean. "The only problem I see is why we're wasting time talking to such a backward species." Veltar pulled out a small silver device and placed it on the table. With a soft hum, it created a beam of light that completely destroyed a metal chair. The chair didn't just break apart, it disappeared completely, like it had never existed. "This is a molecular disintegrator," Veltar explained. "One of our simpler weapons. We have ships that could turn your entire planet into cosmic dust in minutes." The room was very quiet. Captain Morrison realized this meeting was not going the way he had hoped. The Zephyrians weren't interested in being friends. They thought humans were too stupid and weak to matter. "We understand you're more advanced than us," Commander Park said carefully. "But every species has something unique to offer." "Do they?" Veltar stood up. "I think this meeting is over. Your species has nothing we need. You are barely more evolved than the animals on your world." The Zephyrians left without saying goodbye. Captain Morrison and his team sat in silence for several minutes. Back on the USS Liberty, Captain Morrison called a meeting with his senior officers. Maya was working on a control panel nearby and could hear everything they said. "It was a disaster," Captain Morrison told them. "They think we're primitive animals. They have weapons that could destroy Earth without breaking a sweat." "So what do we do now?" asked Commander Park. "We try again tomorrow. Maybe if we show them our determination, they'll change their minds." Dr. Turner shook his head. "I don't think they will, sir. They see us the way we might see ants. You don't make treaties with ants." Maya stopped working. Her hands were shaking a little, but not from fear. She was angry. These aliens thought they were better than humans just because they had better weapons. They thought humans didn't matter. Maya had lived among humans for years. She had seen them be brave when they were scared, kind when they had nothing to give, and determined when everything seemed hopeless. Humans were special, even if they didn't know it yet. That night, Maya waited until the engine room was empty. Then she walked to the main computer and placed her hands on the console. Her eyes began to glow blue as she connected her mind to the ship's systems. She searched through all the files about the Zephyrians. What she found made her angry and worried. The Zephyrians weren't just proud and rude, they were dangerous. They had a long history of finding younger species and making them into slaves. They would study a species for a while, then attack when the time was right. They had done this to dozens of worlds. Maya found records of Zephyrian ships moving toward human space. This meeting wasn't about friendship or trade. It was about deciding whether humans would make good slaves or if they should just be destroyed. Maya's eyes stopped glowing, and she stepped back from the computer. Her hands were shaking again, but now it was from anger and determination. The Zephyrians thought humans were weak and helpless. They thought no one would protect them. They were wrong on both counts. Maya had spent years hiding what she really was. She had pretended to be just another human mechanic because she wanted a normal life. But some things were more important than staying hidden. If the Zephyrians wanted to hurt her adopted family, they would have to go through her first. And Maya was much more dangerous than she looked. She just hoped she wouldn't have to prove it. Maya woke up early the next morning with a bad feeling in her stomach. She had dreamed about fire and screaming, about ships burning in space. Her dreams had been strange lately, full of colors and sounds that didn't make sense. She got dressed and went to the mess hall for breakfast. The ship felt different today. People were walking faster, talking in worried voices. Something was wrong. Captain Morrison's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All crew members, this is the captain. We have a situation. Report to your stations immediately. This is not a drill." Maya dropped her coffee cup and ran to the engine room. Pete was already there with 3 other engineers, all looking at the sensor readings on their screens. "What's happening?" Maya asked. 3 Zephyrian warships just appeared around us, Pete said, his face pale. "They came out of nowhere. Our sensors didn't detect them until they were right on top of us." Maya felt her heart start beating faster. This was what she had been afraid of. The Zephyrians hadn't come to Kepler Station to talk. They had come to hunt. On the bridge, Captain Morrison was trying to stay calm, but Maya could hear the worry in his voice when he spoke to the crew. "Unknown Zephyrian vessels. This is Captain Morrison of the USS Liberty. We are on a peaceful mission. Please state your intentions." The answer came quickly. It was Veltar's cold voice, but now it sounded pleased and dangerous. "Captain Morrison, how nice to hear from you again. My intentions are very simple. You will surrender your ship and submit to processing, or we will destroy you. You have 5 minutes to decide." "Processing?" Captain Morrison asked. "What does that mean?" "It means we will study your species to determine your usefulness," Veltar explained like he was talking about the weather. "Some of you will become workers. Others will become test subjects. The choice is not yours to make." Maya closed her eyes and felt anger burning inside her chest. The Zephyrians were talking about her friends, her family, like they were things to be bought and sold. "Commander," Park's voice came over the communication system. "Captain, they're powering up their weapons. Our shields won't hold against that kind of firepower." Maya could hear the fear in Lisa's voice. She had heard that same fear in human voices for hundreds of years. Whenever something bigger and stronger came to hurt them. "All hands, battle stations," Captain Morrison ordered. "Prepare for combat." Maya knew it was hopeless. She had seen the Zephyrian weapons in their computer files. The USS Liberty was a good ship, but it was no match for 3 Zephyrian warships. The first enemy shots hit the ship like thunder. Maya was thrown against the wall as the ship shook and twisted. Lights flickered, and she could hear metal screaming under the stress. "Shields down to 60%. someone called out over the communication system. Maya got back on her feet and ran toward the bridge. She had hidden long enough. She had pretended to be normal long enough. These people needed her help, and she was going to give it to them. The bridge was chaos when Maya arrived. Officers were shouting reports and trying to coordinate the ship's defenses. Captain Morrison stood in the center of it all, giving orders and trying to find a way to save his. "Crew, return fire," he commanded. "All weapons, target their lead ship." The USS Liberty's weapons fired, but the energy beams barely scratched the Zephyrian hull. It was like throwing rocks at a mountain. "Captain," Maya said quietly. Captain Morrison turned around, surprised to see her on the bridge. "Collins, what are you doing here? Get back to the engine room." "Captain, I can stop them," Maya said. Her voice was different now, stronger and more confident than anyone had ever heard it. "But you need to trust me completely. No questions, no hesitation." Morrison stared at her. Around them, the ship shook as more Zephyrian weapons hit there. "Shields. People were shouting damage reports and casualty numbers. What are you talking about?" Morrison asked. Maya felt power starting to build inside her, power she had kept locked away for so long. Her eyes began to change color, shifting from brown to blue to gold. "I'm not entirely human, Captain," Maya said. "I'm something else, something older. And I'm very angry right now." Captain Morrison had spent his whole life learning to read people. He could tell when someone was lying, when they were scared, when they were dangerous. Looking at Maya now, he saw something he had never seen before. He saw power, vast and ancient, and barely contained. The ship shook again. "Shields down to 20%, Commander Park reported. Morrison made his decision. "Do it," he said. Maya nodded and walked to the main tactical console. She placed her hands on the control panel, and immediately the lights on the bridge began to flicker in response to her presence. "All crew members, this is Maya Collins," she said, her voice now carrying over the ship's communication system without using the microphone. "Please remain calm. Things are about to get very interesting." Maya closed her eyes and let her true self wake up completely. The power that had been sleeping inside her for years came roaring to life. Her eyes blazed with pure energy, cycling through colors that didn't have names. Captain Morrison felt the ship change around him. It wasn't just the Liberty anymore. It was something else, something that hummed with ancient power and purpose. "Zephyrian vessels," Maya said, her voice now reaching across space without using the ship's communication system. "This is your only warning. Leave this area immediately or face the consequences." Veltar's laughter came back over the communication channel. "Impossible. Humans don't have this kind of technology. What trick is this?" "No trick," Maya replied. Her voice was calm, but Captain Morrison could hear the threat underneath it. "I am what your people would call an architect guardian. I have been sleeping among the humans. But you have made a very serious mistake by threatening them." There was silence from the Zephyrian ships for a moment. Then Veltar's voice came back, but now it sounded uncertain. "The architects are gone. They disappeared millions of years ago." "We never disappeared," Maya said. "We just learned to be patient. But our patience has limits." The Zephyrian ships opened fire with everything they had. Beams of energy that could destroy planets struck the Liberty from all sides. Maya smiled, and the ship's hull began to glow with the same light as her eyes. The Zephyrian weapons hit them and simply stopped, absorbed by something that shouldn't have existed. "My turn," Maya whispered, Power flowed out of her and into the ship's systems. Weapons that had never been there before came online. The Liberties. Hull started to change, becoming something that looked more alive than mechanical. Maya didn't want to destroy the Zephyrian ships. She wanted them to understand what they had tried to do and what would happen if they ever threatened humans again. She reached out with her mind and touched the Zephyrian ships. Their weapons powered down, their engines stopped working, their life support systems began to fail. "You came here to hunt," Maya said, her voice reaching every Zephyrian on every ship. "But you chose the wrong prey. Humans are under my protection now. Spread the word to your people. Find another species to bully, because this one is off limits." Veltar's voice came back, shaking with fear. "Please, we surrender. We didn't know. We'll leave immediately." "Yes, you will," Maya agreed. "But first, you're going to fix the damage you caused to this station. And you're going to apologize to every human you insulted yesterday." The Zephyrian ships hung motionless in space, completely helpless. Their crews were learning what it felt like to be weak and scared. Maya turned to look at Captain Morrison. Her eyes were still glowing, but her smile was gentle and familiar. "Are you all right, Captain?" she asked. Morrison realized he had been holding his breath. "I think so. Maya, what are you?" "I'm still your mechanic," Maya said. "I just have a few extra abilities that I don't usually mention on my job applications." Captain Morrison watched as Maya's consciousness seemed to expand beyond her physical body. She was still standing at the tactical console, but somehow she was also everywhere else on the ship at the same time. Her glowing eyes pulsed with energy that made the air around her shimmer like heat waves. "Computer, display ship status," Morrison said quietly. The main screen showed something impossible. The USS Liberty was changing. The hull was shifting and growing, becoming something that looked more like a living creature than a machine. New weapon systems were appearing that had never been in the ship's design. The engines were producing 10 times more power than they should have been able to handle. "How is this possible?" Commander Park whispered. Maya heard the question, even though Lisa had barely spoken out loud. Her voice came from the ship's speakers, but also seemed to come from inside their heads. "Long ago, there was a race called the Architects," Maya explained, while her hands moved over the console, controlling systems that shouldn't have existed. They were the first species to achieve true mastery over space and time. They could build star systems and create life itself. On the main screen, the crew could see the Zephyrian ships floating helplessly in space. Their weapons were dark, their engines silent. The architects explored the galaxy and found it mostly empty, Maya continued. So they began to seed it with life. They created hundreds of species and scattered them across thousands of worlds. Dr. Turner, who had been listening from his science station, asked the question everyone was thinking. What happened to them? Maya's glowing eyes turned toward him. For a moment, Turner felt like he was looking into the heart of a star. They didn't disappear, Maya said. They evolved beyond the need for physical form. But before they transcended, they were worried about the species they had created. They knew that some of their children would grow up to be bullies and conquerors. The ship shuddered slightly as Maya made more modifications to its structure. Captain Morrison could see new corridors appearing on the deck plans, rooms that had never been there before. So the architects created guardians, Maya explained. They took members of each species and changed them, gave them a spark of architect power and knowledge. Then they sent these guardians back to live among their own people, to sleep until they were needed. Pete Rodriguez had come up from the engine room to see what was happening. His mouth was hanging open as he watched his quiet mechanic transform his ship into something from a dream. "You're saying you're one of these guardians?" Pete asked. Maya nodded. "I am humanity's guardian. I have been sleeping among you for 26 years, waiting for the day when you would need me." "But you look so young," Katie Wells said from her communication station. Maya smiled, and for a moment she looked like the shy mechanic they all knew. "Guardians age differently. This body is young, but my consciousness is much older. I have memories from the time when the architects still walked among the stars." Captain Morrison was trying to understand everything he was hearing. "So when the quantum drive failed 2 weeks ago?" "I fixed it by directly interfacing with the ship's systems," Maya confirmed. "I was hoping no one would notice, but you saw my eyes change color. You have good instincts, Captain." The tactical display showed that the Zephyrian ships were trying to restart their engines, but nothing was working. Veltar's voice came over the communication channel, shaking with fear. "Please, Guardian, we submit to your authority. Allow us to withdraw." Maya's expression hardened. "Not yet. First, you will answer for what you tried to do here," she gestured, "at the main screen, and it changed to show images from the Zephyrian computer systems. The crew of the Liberty could see star maps marked with conquered worlds, databases full of enslaved species, and plans for the invasion of human space. "The Zephyrians have destroyed 17 civilizations in the past 1,000 years, Maya said, her voice cold with anger. "They take what they want and crush anyone who resists. They came here planning to do the same thing to humanity." Commander Park studied the images with horror. "These are slave camps. Those are human-like species in cages. The Zephyrians don't see other beings as people," Maya explained. "They see them as resources to be harvested. But they made a mistake when they chose humanity as their next target." Dr. Turner was looking at readings from the ship's new sensor arrays. "Maya, the power levels you're generating should be impossible. Where is all this energy coming from?" Maya's eyes flashed brighter for a moment. "The universe itself. The architects built their technology to work with the fundamental forces of reality. Matter, energy, space, and time are all just tools to be used." She turned back to the tactical display and focused on the Zephyrian ships. With a thought, she disabled their life support systems. The alien crews would be unconscious in minutes. "I'm not going to kill them," Maya said, seeing the worried looks on the human faces around her. "But they need to understand what helplessness feels like. They need to know that there are consequences for being bullies." Captain Morrison watched his mechanic reshape reality around them and realized that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in a dangerous universe. They had a protector, someone with the power to stand against any threat. "Maya, what happens now?" he asked. Maya's consciousness pulled back into her physical body, though her eyes still glowed with soft blue light. "Now the galaxy learns that humans are protected. Word will spread quickly that an architect guardian has awakened. Most species will leave you alone after that." "Most species?" Commander Park asked. "There are always those who think they can challenge the old powers," Maya said. "And there are other guardians scattered throughout the galaxy. My awakening will send a signal that they will feel. Some of them may not be as fond of their adopted species as I am of mine." The bridge was quiet for a moment as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, Pete spoke up. "So what are you going to do? Will you stay with us?" Maya looked around at the faces of the crew. these humans who had become her family without even knowing it. "If you'll have me, I'd like to stay. I'm still a good mechanic, and now I can fix a lot more than just engines." Captain Morrison made his decision. "Collins, consider yourself permanently assigned to the USS Liberty, though I think we're going to need to update your job description." Maya laughed, and the sound was warm and familiar despite everything that had changed. "I think Guardian Mechanic has a nice ring to it." On the main screen, the Zephyrian ships were slowly limping away from Kepler Station. They would survive, but they would never forget what had happened here. More importantly, they would tell others about the human ship protected by an architect guardian. Maya walked over to the captain's chair and spoke quietly so only Morrison could hear. "Captain, my awakening has sent ripples across the galaxy. Other guardians will be stirring, and not all of them may be happy with their assigned species. Some may try to control their people instead of protecting them." Morrison nodded. "Are you suggesting we should do something about that?" Maya's eyes flashed with blue light. "I'm suggesting that humanity has friends out there who might need our help. And I'm very good at convincing unreasonable guardians to be more reasonable." Captain Morrison looked at his transformed ship, at his crew who had just witnessed the impossible, and at the young woman who had revealed herself to be something from legend. "Well then," he said with a smile, "I guess we're not going home just yet." 3 hours later, Maya stood in the ship's conference room facing Captain Morrison and his senior staff. Her eyes had returned to their normal brown color, but everyone could still feel the power that lived inside her. The air around her seemed to shimmer slightly, like she was connected to forces beyond their understanding. "The immediate threat is over," Maya said, her voice calm and steady. "The Zephyrians have sent messages to their government explaining what happened here. They've also contacted other species in this region to warn them that humans are under architect protection." Commander Park pulled up a star map on the room's display screen. "We're getting communications from all over the sector. Diplomatic, requests, trade offers, even apologies from species that had been planning hostile actions against Earth." Captain Morrison leaned back in his chair. "So humanity's status in the galaxy has changed overnight." "Completely," Maya confirmed. "You've gone from being unknown newcomers to being a protected species with ancient backing. Most civilizations will treat you with respect and caution now." Dr. Turner had been quiet during the briefing, studying readings from the ship's new sensor systems. "Maya, I'm detecting energy signatures from 17 different star systems. They all match the pattern of your awakening." Maya nodded, her expression growing serious. "Other guardians are waking up. My activation sent a signal across the galaxy that resonated with their dormant consciousness. They're becoming aware of what they really are." "Is that good or bad?" Pete asked from his seat at the table. "It depends on the guardian," Maya said. "Some will be like me, protective of their adopted species and willing to guide them gently. Others—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Others may see their people as experiments to be controlled rather than children to be protected." Captain Morrison studied the star map, noting the locations where energy signatures had appeared. "What kind of problems are we talking about?" Maya gestured at the display, and it zoomed in on a system about 50 light-years away. "The Karani Collective is located here. They're a peaceful species that specializes in art and philosophy. Their guardian awakened 2 hours ago." The screen showed images of beautiful blue-skinned beings with large eyes and graceful movements. Their cities looked like works of art, all flowing lines and gentle curves. "The Karani Guardian goes by the name HFY," Maya continued. According to the data I'm receiving, he's decided that his people are too peaceful for their own good. He's forcing them to build weapons and armies, claiming it's for their protection. Commander Park frowned. But you said they were peaceful. Maybe they don't want to build weapons. They don't, Maya confirmed. But HFY is using his powers to compel obedience. He's taken control of their leaders and is reshaping their entire society to match his vision of what they should be. The room was quiet for a moment as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, Captain Morrison spoke. What about the other awakened guardians? Maya manipulated the display to show different star systems. The results are mixed. 3 guardians are working well with their species, helping them advance and protecting them from threats. But 6 others are becoming dictators, using their power to force their people into roles they never chose. Katie Wells, who had been listening from her, positioned near the communications console, raised her hand tentatively. Maya, can you stop them? Maya's eyes flashed blue for just a moment. I can. Guardians can override each other's commands if one of us is acting against the Architect's original purpose, but it's not something to be done lightly. Captain Morrison stood up and walked to the star map. Maya, what was the Architect's original purpose for the Guardians? To protect and guide their assigned species toward a better future, Maya answered. To help them grow and evolve, not to control them. The Architects believed that all intelligent life had the right to choose its own path. Then we have a responsibility to help these other species, Morrison said firmly. If their guardians are enslaving them, we need to do something about it. Dr. Turner looked concerned. Captain, are we talking about interfering in the internal affairs of alien civilizations? That's exactly the kind of thing that could start a galactic war. Maya shook her head. Not in this case. Guardian business is separate from normal interspecies politics. If I challenge a rogue Guardian, other civilizations will see it as an internal matter among the Architect legacy systems. Commander Park was studying the tactical implications. How dangerous would these confrontations be? Very, Maya admitted. Guardians have access to the same fundamental forces I do. A fight between us could devastate entire star systems if we're not careful. Captain Morrison made his decision. Maya, if you're willing to take this risk, the USS Liberty will support you. These beings deserve the same freedom that humans have. Maya felt warmth spread through her chest. This was why she loved humans so much. Even when they were scared and outmatched, they were willing to fight for what was right. Thank you, Captain, she said. But before we begin, I need to make some modifications to the ship. If we're going up against other Guardians, we'll need every advantage we can get. Over the next 6 hours, Maya transformed the USS Liberty into something that had never existed before. She merged human engineering with Architect technology, creating a ship that could travel between stars in minutes and survive attacks that would destroy planets. The crew watched in amazement as their familiar corridors expanded and changed. New rooms appeared, filled with technology that looked like it was grown rather than built. The engine room became a vast space where energy flowed like water through crystalline structures. It's beautiful, Katie whispered as she walked through the transformed ship. Maya smiled. The Architects believed that functional things should also be beautiful. Technology should inspire wonder, not fear. When the modifications were complete, Captain Morrison called all hands to the main cargo bay, which had been expanded into a large assembly area. The entire crew of 200 gathered to hear what their captain had to say. People of the USS Liberty, Morrison began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. We've learned that we're not alone in the universe, and that humanity has a protector who has been watching over us. We've also learned that other species aren't as fortunate as we are. He gestured toward Maya, who stood beside him looking calm and determined. Our ship has been chosen to help free civilizations that are being oppressed by rogue guardians. This mission will be dangerous, and it will take us far from home. Morrison paused, looking out at the faces of his crew. Anyone who wants to return to Earth can take a shuttle to Kepler Station and catch a transport home. There will be no shame in that choice. But for those who want to stand up for freedom and justice in the galaxy, we're going to do something that no human ship has ever done before. The cargo bay was silent for a moment. Then Tom Baker, one of the young engineers, stepped forward. "Captain, I signed up to explore space and help humanity find its place among the stars," Tom said. "This sounds like the best way to do that." One by one, other crew members voiced their agreement. In the end, not a single person chose to leave the ship. Maya felt tears in her eyes as she watched these brave humans commit themselves to protecting people they had never met. This was why the architects had chosen humanity for protection. They had the courage to do what was right, even when it was difficult. 2 days later, the USS Liberty entered hyperspace on a course for the Karani system. Maya stood on the bridge, watching the stars stretch into lines of light as they traveled faster than physics should have allowed. "Guardian," Captain Morrison said formally. "What should we expect when we arrive?" Maya's eyes began to glow as she accessed information from across the galaxy. "HFY has fortified the Karani homeworld and built a fleet of warships using forced labor. He's also started genetic experiments on his people, trying to make them more aggressive and warlike. And if he refuses to stop?" Maya's expression grew cold. "Then I'll make him stop. The Karani deserve to choose their own future, just like humans do." Captain Morrison nodded. "Then let's go remind this rogue guardian what his job is supposed to be." As the USS Liberty raced through hyperspace toward their first confrontation, Maya felt a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced in years. She was no longer hiding what she was or pretending to be something she wasn't. She was Maya Collins, guardian mechanic of the USS Liberty, protector of humanity, and defender of freedom throughout the galaxy. And she had work to do. The stars around them pulsed with energy as they flew toward their destiny, carrying hope to species that had forgotten what freedom felt like. Behind them, Earth continued to spin peacefully in space, safe under the protection of their guardian. And in the engine room of the transformed ship, Maya's tools still sat in their familiar places, waiting for the day when she would need to fix something that couldn't be repaired with ancient power and cosmic forces. Some things, after all, never changed.